Another week in crypto. The market isn't really going up. It isn't really going down. It is pretty much just staying the same. Now, recently, in the past 2 weeks, the market did skyrocket up, and it felt like a huge dopamine hit. And those dopamine hits are addicting, and we want more of that. But markets don't just go straight up, even in bull markets. So, is what is happening normal? Does it mean that this bull run is going to continue? Does it mean that things are topping out? We will take a deep look at the market action and share with you our thoughts today. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel and our family. Now, if you, like me, came into crypto because you realize there is serious potential here for life-changing gains, but realize that it takes a greater 4 to 8 year period to really hone in and do those life-changing gains, and you're looking for a discussion on becoming a solid, unshakable, savage crypto investor, kind of like a Navy SEAL of crypto investing, well, you're in the right place. And I know there's lots of channels that focus on like price action and if you day trade, you can do good. What I've seen is there is one approach that outperforms everything else. It does take a lot of patience. It does involve the greater 4 to 8 year time period. But what else are you going to do over the coming 4 to 8 years that could potentially change your finances for the rest of your life? Now, I was once new to the crypto space myself 8 years ago, and I didn't know at that time that if you want to grow a huge crypto YouTube channel, you talk about things that are already high, and you're just act overly optimistic on why they might go higher, and you will get lots of views. You will get lots and lots of subscribers because that's what everyone wants to hear. And your audience will often get completely wrecked. Now, myself, I was hungry for analysis on cryptos that were underpriced and undervalued. I didn't really find that. So in 2020, I created that. And we discussed crypto as an investment, discussed the most important things like the 4-year investment cycle of crypto projects and the pros and cons of those projects, the risks I feel I see in those projects, as well as the guesses at upside if it does come together well. So if you're looking for those deep discussions, follow this YouTube channel. If you're looking for even deeper discussions, join our private Patreon group that allows you access to our Rainmaker private Discord. This is where the best discussion and best info is. And there are other benefits too, but you will have to join us to find out. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul, who is joining us from DEVVE, invests in many different markets, not just the crypto market. None of this is to be taken as financial advice. We will be going through some price charts, some price action. We will be saying whether we like it as a buy, a sell, or a wait. And those are just our own feelings for ourselves, not financial advice to you. Make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show because today we have Paul joining us from DEVVE. Paul, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Very important day today. We've got the Fed meeting. So in a couple of hours, or maybe even less, actually, we should get a decision. And there's also some interesting time cycles. A year ago, we had the Asian, well, it was the Japanese yen and the Nikkei sold off very aggressively. And we're also going into a thin holiday period. So it might be a bit volatile, a bit bumpy. Strap in, basically, for a little bit of turbulence, I think. That could last a few weeks. Maybe not. We'll have to just see. But the big picture, the big macro scene is we're still on this longer term journey that's very positive. So, we'll have to see what markets hold in as they correct, if indeed they correct. What kind of what holds in, what holds up compared to everything else. And then if things turn down and then start to turn back up again, we'll get a good insight into what will be leading this next phase, which could be quite exciting into the year end.
So for those that are very new to the bigger picture of where money flows, why is this Fed meeting today? Why is that a big deal? What implications might that have on crypto and even other markets?
Well, if you think about the economy and what drives the economy is money. And that means your ability to borrow money and how much businesses are able to borrow money. And if it's easy to borrow money, i.e., interest rates are low, then it's much easier to invest in speculative projects and things like that, as you can imagine. But that also means that people spend more. They also will be more inclined to buy things that are slightly more expensive. And this pushes the economy further up. It increases the amount of what we call gross domestic product, which is the amount that a country can produce. And all in all, it's a very competitive way, or one competitive way of beating other countries, uh, as well as with things like taxation. You could do it with taxation, keeping taxes low. But it's, in summary, it's really like putting more money into people's pockets, or the ability to put money into people's pockets. So, if you wanted to expand your business, if you had 3 restaurants and you wanted a 4th, etc., etc., I'm sure you can understand that lower interest rates helps you to do that. But on the other side of it, it also does mean that if you're holding your money in a bank account and you're being very what's called risk averse, you are receiving a certain amount of money for holding that money, or effectively lending it to the bank, and the bank will pay you a rate of interest. So some people just leave their money in their checking account. You call it in America, we call it a current account. But either way, the bank will pay you a smaller amount of money. Now, the problem with that is, if inflation is low, then effectively, even if you're getting, say, 3% on your money, you might actually be losing money because inflation might be at 5%. And that's where the asset markets come in. This is where the stock market comes in. When that situation is prevalent, then in order to to mitigate the kind of inflation aspect, people invest in stocks. And the reason why they invest in stocks is because if prices are going up, then companies can charge more, and that's reflected in their share price. So it's also good for certain financial institutions, which is why we're seeing banks doing so well, if you want to have a look at some of those charts. So when the economy is running, there is some kind of, between economists, they will argue as to what you need to look at in order to determine whether an economy is healthy or not. And if the economy is running hot, is it unemployment that you look at? And in fact, on Friday, we've got what's called non-farm payrolls in the US. And that shows you how many, not including farmers, employment figures have changed, whether there's more people being employed or less people being employed. So it gives you a sense of how the economy's doing. Or do we look at other things like output of products? Or do we look at other things like, inflation, or how do you manage the economy? So the Fed have got this one lever, and there's one effect, or one button that they can push. More like a lever, actually. I think that's a better way of putting it, because they can push the lever up to slow the ship down a bit. If they think things are moving too fast, they can make interest rates go up, which stops people spending as much money, increases people's mortgages, so they have less disposable income. Or they can do the reverse. Now, obviously, Trump wants everything to work very well on his watch, and he wants businesses to do very well, being a businessman. So he's very keen for Fed Powell to drop interest rates. But as we've seen, certain inflationary items like base and precious metals have been pushing up, and he will have some difficulty potentially justifying that. But the other point is, if you've got, let's say in America, you've got 401ks, or wherever you may be, in Canada, you may have something similar. When you have big assets, and your house is worth more and your share portfolio is worth more, you're more inclined to be open to the idea of investing in other riskier products. And that applies to companies and to individuals. So lower interest rates then feeds into the potential of other assets doing well. So that's why someone might look at the gains that you can get in, say Bitcoin or ETH or other cryptocurrencies, and decide that they don't want to put their money in fiat. And they might say, well, this, over time, inflation is eroding this value, and I want to put it somewhere where it will be protected from inflation. So the stock market is one place. and the crypto market is another. And obviously gold and base and precious metals and other products like that and real estate have a place to play. So it all kind of fits into this big picture of what sort of mood are people in? Are they in a risk on taking mood, or are they in a risk off taking mood? So we're kind of taking the temperature of the market. But say today there probably will not be a change in interest rates, but from what we can see in the markets, there's been some level of anticipation of that because the dollar's gone up and equities are just having a little bit of a pullback. So even if rates aren't changed, they might react in a positive way, because next month, or not, September, sorry, isn't one in August. In September, they could actually cut rates. So the market gets really excited, like Christmas is coming and they're going to get this sort of gift in September, and that's can make the market start to rally. So in short, lower interest rates is good for the party, higher interest rates is worse for the party, but it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes interest rates can be going up, but going up so slowly that it doesn't really affect the party.
Mm-hmm. So we'll see. Trump has definitely been putting a lot of pressure on Chairman Powell to lower interest rates. It is interesting that the U.S. interest rates are so much higher than Europe's. So Europe's are around 2%, and U.S.'s central bank interest rates are about 4.25%. So Europe has aggressively brought them down versus the U.S. over the past year and a half.
Well, that's the European Union, because that you have like the euro and a euro area interest rate. I mean, in the UK, I think it's about 4.5%, 4.25. So ours is fairly high. But they're exactly. I mean, that's a really good point. Money should really go to where it's best taken care of. So that could be, well, if you're going to give me, like, if a Brazilian account gives you 10%, you might say, oh, that's where I'm going to put my money because I'm going to get 10%. But you also have to factor in the currency, because if the currency is going down, then you might not actually make anything. You may even end up with a loss, because when you transfer it back, you find that actually the money, the relative currency rate has gone much further lower, and you may have been better off where you were. So that's also a big factor. And it works in other ways too. So it works in borrowing, and that's why people borrow in different currencies. And it's an important point because of what we were talking about with the Japanese yen. The Japanese yen, or the Japanese for many years had deflation. And what that meant was that they were desperately keeping interest rates pegged on the floor. So the market knew interest rates weren't going to go up. So they would borrow in Japanese yen because they knew the long-term outlook was that rates wouldn't go up. So what they do with this borrowing at very, very low interest rates is they invest it in the stock market. Right? If you're going to invest it in a utility company and get 4 or 5%, or maybe even more, or maybe 8% in the stock market, and you're borrowing at virtually zero, how much do you want to do? This is what happens. But when fear sets in, you get this triggering of people selling the stock market to get their dollars to then transfer them back into Japanese yen, and you get a big currency move, a simultaneous currency and equity move. And this is why it's important to look at all markets, because a lot of the time they kind of move in a fairly, what is predictable, a fairly consistent ways, is probably a good way of putting it. But there are times when something can appear left field, and you might not be looking at it because you think, well, who cares where the Japanese yen is? But actually, that could have a ripple effect on the rest of the markets, especially if there's a very big move.
Yeah, agreed. We are live. Chris joining us. Morning Rainmakers. Happy Wednesday. Jay, Paul, and community. Kevin.
Hey.
Good
Kevin.
morning. And another Kevin. Hey, guys.
Hey, Kevin.
F. Fowler.
From Belgium.
Belgium.
Nice.
I like it. Wants us to take a look at Umbrella and LUKSO.
Bruges, very lovely place.
Penguin. All my money is in small cap crypto projects. No other assets or savings. Am I effed? Well, I am mostly in small cap crypto projects myself. So I don't know which ones you're in, but that's where a lot of my money is. It's a risky place to be. I like that risk. In Netherlands, 2% is really high. My bank only gives 1%. Even if the interest rates from the central bank are 4.25%, that does not mean that's what your checking account or even savings account will be paying you.
No, definitely
they'll
not.
pay you much, much less than that. So you're not too far off. I would imagine checking and savings accounts in the US and Canada are probably paying about 1% as well.
Really? Okay, that's pretty low.
Yeah, you do not get ahead by keeping your money in the bank at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's so that's why it's so important, I guess. But the other thing is that the market dictates where interest rates go, not the Fed. The Fed are kind of reactionary. So that's a whole nother thing. But that's why I look at charts, because charts and the market kind of tell you where things are going, and then you see them reacting afterwards, which is why, especially during crises, towards the end, when things are getting too hot, they'll start to react, but they'll be reacting too late, and then they'll overreact, and there'll be more of a problem than a solution, and they'll exacerbate the problem. Yeah, but those are special circumstances which we've got to look forward to.
Well, share with us what markets you're watching and what you see going on your end outside of crypto.
Okay, so I always start off with the stock markets because I want to know what the stock market is a forward-looking place, and I want to see what the market is expecting further down the pike. Are we expecting the market to go higher? Are we expecting earnings to look better? And it's so for me, it's a discounting of the future. And when trouble brews, I think it's one of the most sensitive areas to look at. And at the moment, what we've seen we saw the Trump tariff sell off and the massive V all the way back. And we're all the way back to this 45,000 level, which you don't need to be a technical analyst to see how important that level is. 1, 2, and then it's just backed off again. So obviously the call would be if it breaks through that, it will go higher. And I do think it will go higher, but I'm not surprised that it's bulked at this level because it is so big. And I think marrying up with what happened, as I say, a year ago, and also with us moving into August, I just think we're in for a consolidation. Now, I could be wrong. Let's see. I mean, if we can take this high out by next week, it'll all look very much more rosy, But for the moment, I'm slightly more cautious. And I'm also cautious because the dollar it seems to be rallying a bit, and precious and base metals, not so much base, but precious metals seem to be coming off. Or at least consolidating a bit more than I would have thought. So it's more like I think we need to just be a bit cautious here rather than, oh, that's it. This is the top. I don't think this is the top. I think this is a pullback area. Dow Jones Transportation's come off quite aggressively. I don't know if that's anything to do with the kind of weather news that we got, the tsunami situation, which actually wasn't as bad as people thought, but I don't know what's driving that. But anyway, that seems to have come off quite aggressively today. S&P 500 doesn't really look like it's corrected much at all. In fact, it's still near the high. But still, I think if you look at how I would never say sell something just because it's up, but it does look like we are due some form of correction. So I'm just kind of bracing for that a little bit. But in Europe, pretty much the same thing. Things look bullish longer term, but look like they might be turning over. So gold, we're still in this range, this consolidation. Now, I was very bullish, and then I was a bit cautious over the Middle East situation with the bombing of the Iranian nuclear reactor potential, all of that situation. When this didn't move up, I was a bit suspicious, and then I thought, okay, things have calmed down. Maybe this is now the time to rally, but it seems to be stuck in this range. So I don't know. There's something not quite right here, and it does look like the odds are now starting to shift back towards a correction. If it doesn't go and everyone's bullish, and I think they have been, or certainly from what I've seen, then maybe the odds shift back towards a correction. So again, I'm just being slightly cautious. I do still like it longer term. I do still like silver, also palladium. That's been a good one, and platinum. All these trades for me are longer term setups, but the fact that things are coming back in the short term is natural in any market anyway. And we saw this breakout in copper. We talked about it for a while. We got very excited up here, and the tariffs knocked it down, but ultimately that was a great buying opportunity. And then it's broken into new highs. Again, it's consolidating here a bit, but that's going up. And this is what I was talking about with inflation, because if base and precious metals go up, the cost of everything goes up. It's in a lot of products. So if base metal prices go up, then cars will cost more, your iPhone will cost more, just about everything that gets built would cost more. So, that is inflationary. And so it's important to look at that. And I can't see how rates are going to be going down if they go down in September, I don't see them going down after that, because this is pressing towards the upside on virtually all of the base and precious metals. So equities still look like they're going up. And then we just look at what's going on in the bond market. So we've got 10-year US yields, which pretty much range bound, nothing to see here. 2-year yields are not giving us any clues other than they're kind of compressing more and more into a range. When that happens, we normally get a knee-jerk reaction. That could be in either direction. I just don't know at this point. So I'm just waiting to see what the market's going to tell us. Now, the dollar it hit a low down here. The trend was down and had a rebound, which came off the 200-day moving average, which was great. But now it's, shot through that. And it's, as I say, it's just feeling like the market's getting a little bit more nervous. Whether it's got anything to do with the interest rate decision or non-farms on Friday, I'm just not sure. Whether it's just a thin market, but pressing back up to 100 seems reasonable here. Maybe it'll go up, come back down again and go up again. So a consolidation, I'm leaning very heavily towards consolidation in quite a few markets, which could also hit not necessarily whack, but it could see the crypto markets going sideways, treading a bit of water. We've seen some really great levels recently. And I think a bit of a consolidation, maybe even a pullback wouldn't be a bad thing as the market, consolidates, gets ready for the next move up. ETH's had a fantastic run, a really good move. I think we were close, we were on that, and we did see it beginning and then it building, and it's extended really nicely and hit a very good resistance trend line here. So even a correction off this line would be great in the short term, because it would again build up for a long-term move. If we take a step back, we can see it's like hit this high, low, back into the high, pull back, and then break through. So the big picture still looks positive. It's just, you know what it's like. 2 weeks or 3 weeks of a sideways market can feel like that's it. It's the end and it's never going to move. But I don't think that will be the case. I just think we just need to consolidate here for a bit.
Yeah, it's funny. The crypto space, and this is markets in general, but because crypto is so volatile with, going up and going down, for a long time, people complained about how volatile stocks were until like crypto is like 5 times more volatile than stocks. It creates this dopamine hits and then these panics all the time, and people that follow it really closely and don't become immune to like the dopamine hits and the panics, it washes them out of crypto over time. Like looking at the ETH chart, you see, wow, recent big run up. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I think probably it will test it and probably punch through. But you don't know, like a lot of it is waiting. That crypto plays out usually a major bull run. So far, it's been every 4 years. And we're due, and that bull run is happening. Bitcoin bottomed out at $14,000. So now we're sitting around 115 to 120. And so we're way, way up. And, like if you look at the past year and a half, Bitcoin's gone up massively, but it doesn't go up in a straight line. It goes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. ETH hasn't broken through its previous highs yet, but it looks like it wants to. And so we're going to see what it ends up doing here. I think the ETH all-time high is coming in the next couple of months.
Yeah, we've got quite a telling, interesting comment here. It's like questioning whether ETH has had a great run. I mean, of course, it depends where you were looking at it from. And if you were looking at it from like about 6 weeks ago when we were talking about a low around here, it's up about 180%. So if you don't think that's a good run, then, you know, I think you're deluded pretty much. But yeah, if you bought it at the high, then yeah, of course it hasn't had a good run yet. But this is part of the problem, that people have absolutely no idea what normal percentage moves are in a normal market. This is highly unusual. You are not going to get this forever. You know, these percentage moves are in some ways slightly insane, and it's driven by people who have very little experience. Maybe they think they've been in the markets 5 years, they think they've been in the markets a long time, but I can tell you that these sorts of percentage moves will just not be repeated in this way for potentially for a long time. So if you get used to this sort of move and you think it's not a big move, then, you know, I don't know. I guess the market will teach you. The market will teach you a lesson. But the thing is, if you look at certain altcoins, you know, of course, there's plenty of volatility in there. They're up, you know, 25%, 30%, 40% in a day. So it's natural for people to think, oh, you know, 180% in a few weeks isn't really that big. But if you think about that, there's that old story about the guy who who was owed a debt to the king, and he said, if you I don't want the money, I just want a grain of sand, and I just want it doubled on every square on a chessboard. And if you know the story of that, which you probably all do, you know, the power of doubling is so incredible that obviously by the time he got 3/4 of the way through the chessboard, he had more, it was worth more than many times over in his kingdom. So the point is that it's percentage moves have to be put into the context of 1% of what you're getting on your bank account, you know. And if 180% doesn't look good compared to 1% in your bank account where it's safe, then, you know, I think perspectives need to be thought about.
Yeah, like what excites me about crypto is this volatility. It's precisely this volatility. And like Paul said, this volatility won't be here for forever. It will stabilize after some time. It's just, this is a new technology front that's getting adoption, much like Internet 1.0 took a while to get some adoption. This adoption is happening. What crypto really is something that allows the internet to do things it could not do before, or Web 3.0, if they're calling it. So Web 2.0 was like Facebook and social media, where there's massive interaction among multiple people, like friends to friends, Instagram, things like that, which was a big paradigm shift of where money was going because so much attention went there. Web 3.0, crypto and blockchain allow the internet to do things it could not do before. And so there's a technology shift as well as a technology adoption shift. And part of the reason there's so much money here is Bitcoin is the main driver that drives awareness. As Bitcoin's price goes up, people wake up and like, oh my gosh. And it creates almost an overboom. Well, definitely an overboom, which then creates an overbust. And so 2013, we saw an overboom in Bitcoin's price. 2017, we saw an overboom in Bitcoin's price and altcoins prices. 2021, same thing. And probably 2025 hasn't really happened yet. I think we have a big overboom, which then leads to a bust. And so this volatility is the magic, in my opinion, because to make money at anything, you need to be able to buy low and sell high. Because of the bust, it creates an opportunity for you to buy low, which can be frustrating. A lot of people that bought over the past couple of years feels like, oh my gosh, these altcoins aren't going up yet. And you're right, they're not going up yet. Some of them are going to go absolutely crazy, probably in the coming months. Bitcoin has gone up massively, but Bitcoin always leads that, as after the Bitcoin halving or around the Bitcoin halving, it starts to do a climb up, which then is continued historically for a year to a year and a half before peaking out. And altcoins follow right near the end of that, with some altcoins popping off sooner, but really the major altcoin run happening around that. Now, a lot of people are making the case that because there's so many altcoins out there, there's just too many altcoins and not enough money to pump them. I think altcoins with strong fundamentals, and there's a shortage of those. Shortage of well-led projects that are actually doing something that is massively interesting. I think those are going to do tremendously well. Will like every project that's launching some altcoin do well? No, no, not unless they have something special and something great about them. Because there are so many projects and so many people have just launching coins left and right. Those won't necessarily do well. But we're waiting for that and looking for those gems. And that's what we cover on this, our Wednesday thing, overall of what's going on in the market, where Bitcoin's price at, where ETH price is at, other markets that relate to crypto, and then some of your specific picks, as well as some other picks that we want to look deeper at. So with that, we've looked at Bitcoin, we've looked at ETH. ETH is interesting. A lot of times when it hits a top like this, the second or third time, it's ready to punch through. And technically, this is the second time that it's hitting. It came up earlier around this level. Maybe ETH is ready to punch through, and maybe it's not. So let's take a look at some of the other ones we want to look at today. Solana, and let's look at where Solana's price is.
Yeah. So Solana is, I just want to have a look at this on a daily chart to see what has been going on. Again, we've got this kind of central, well, it's not again on this one, as we've seen in some of the others over the past few weeks. You've got the central pivotal level around 180, and it's just in this big consolidation, isn't it? So we just need for this to start playing up in this area to then be thinking about it breaking higher. Is it going to lead the way? When I was saying at the top of the show that we might get a bit of a correction, so let's see what comes down and what holds in. This would be one that I'd be watching very closely because it did lead the way up. This was a fantastic base, talked about it, even got the buy triggers where we were looking at it, and then again, as it was hitting this high, as I do when things are near highs and looking like they're going to break out, I would always try and push the envelope a bit, and I would have been bullish. We got this correction, another move up, and so what we're saying about that is that there will be overhead supply up here, because there will be people who've bought into this later phase, but overall the trend is still bullish. So we just need technically some signs that are telling us that the dynamics have changed from what we're seeing here, and it's moving into a strongly trending market. Now, it could do that, and there's no reason why. There's nothing necessarily stopping it. It's just that I think the broader macro picture is now moving into a bit of a consolidation. We've got the upward trend line. We've got the lows. Now, if we look at these lows, I'm just going to set that line correctly and then see if that was okay. That was April. That was April this year. And just want to see where it was around August last year. That was this big sell-off that I was mentioning before. So August last year was that move that you see how quickly that got rejected. So this looks in the very short term like it wants to come down, possibly towards 167. We'll see if it gets a little lower, but overall this trend line is up. So I think there'll be people ready to buy on those dips. And longer term, I think this is one that should rally in line with everything else, in line with the broader bull market, just maybe in for a bit of a consolidation. So if I had to say anything, long term, it would be a buy, but short term, I think it's a wait until this has played out. So let's go with the short term, because I'm sure it'll be back on the table further, in a few weeks' time. So for the short term, it's a wait.
Awesome. Well, let's take a look at some things with Solana. And what I get excited about is helping people understand investing in crypto. And overall, some of the problems I see, I've been in the crypto space for 8 years now. And when I first came in, I was really naive and I thought, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Everyone is going to make so much money with this. Who's here now? Because it felt like early days. And even though there was a lot of people that came in earlier, it was pretty early days. But I realized most didn't make money. In fact, the numbers were quite staggering, 89%. And Solana gives us a perfect view into why most people don't do well. For example, Solana bottomed out here at $7 in the bear market, like an amazing price. And it quickly bounced up to $25. But this period was an incredible time to buy Solana, but this is not when most people were buying. Do I know when most people were buying? Here. Wow. So they could have been buying it for $23 and below, even as low as $7. And yet they were happy to pay $245 for it. What the hell happened there? Why are people buying high and then hoping it goes higher? Because you would think people coming into crypto would realize that with any investment, you make your money buying low and then selling high. Well, most don't do that. And there's a couple reasons for it. Number one, they're new. They are just new. And whenever you're new, you're bad before you're good. And this is when most crypto YouTube channels were covering Solana. Why? Because the algorithm rewards covering things when they're hot. And when are things hot? When the price has gone up massively. So Solana was trending here as a lot of meme coins were trading on the Solana blockchain, and people were buying Solana in order to get into the meme coins, and Solana chain was getting tons of usage. And all the crypto normies were talking about Solana, 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 Solana. So when everyone's talking about Solana, is it a good time to be buying or a good time to be selling? Well, you can see by the charts what happened after this. So it peaked out at $200, almost $300, and then it crashed down to 95. Now, I was sharing with people that I thought Solana was high and that it was a terrible time to be buying, and it was. Why? Literally just because everyone was talking about Solana was just indicator enough to me that everyone in the crypto space talking about Solana is usually not a good time to buy Solana. It's a good time to be exiting. And sure enough, that held true once again and came down to under $100. It was a good time to be buying now. Well, Solana is a blue chip. I think Solana will do a lot better in the bull run. It is a fairly decent time. And like Paul was showing on the charts, it's probably going to take a much further run up. It just got overheated with this. And if everyone in the crypto space is talking about Solana, it is not a good time to be buying Solana. It's a good time to be talking about it if you want to grow a big YouTube channel and you want lots of views and lots of new people following you. It's a terrible time to be buying it. Now, here was a better time to be buying it. Is this a good time? Well, Paul trades breakouts and he knows what to look for on breakouts. And that's what he's looking for, that Solana might be doing a further break to the upside soon. And that's what Paul is looking for. I like to hold for longer periods. So when I'm going to buy something, I don't want to be checking it every day. I literally want to buy it when most people aren't talking about it, but I think they're strong fundamentals. And then I want to be selling it when everyone's talking about it again. So Solana is outside my metrics of what I'm looking for. It's a fairly high market cap already. If we look at the market cap on it, it's right here. So the market cap is $96 billion. A lot of what I buy is in a market cap under $1 billion. Most of them are under $100 million market cap. Now, what can Solana do from here? Maybe 5x, maybe 10x in a bull market. We'll see. But it's realized a bunch of its gains. Realized that Solana already went from $7 at the bottom all the way up to $300, and it's currently sitting at $178. So that in itself is like, what, a 25x? So it's already realized a whole bunch of its gains. I'm not going to be buying Solana 25x from its floor during the bear market and think I'm going to be getting another 25x from there. It just won't play out that way. So Solana for me is just not that interesting. It's realized a bunch of its run this bull run, and it might have 5 or 10x left. But I think about the opportunity cost. Are there other investments I can put my money in that might have a much bigger run than that? So Solana is just going to get a wait for me. And let's take a look at Cardano. Cardano is an interesting player. Let's see what's going on with its price action.
Yeah, Cardano I do like, and it's been a long term, it's always been there or thereabouts in the long term, even though it's kind of consolidated, not really broken out as yet. But the big picture chart is one that's showing a basing pattern and then higher lows, and it's in this big consolidation. So I think I said it last time we looked at it, that it may not break out at this point. It may take a bit longer for it to go. It seems to be moving a bit slower. That was when I think when we looked at it last time, it was around the time that ETH was also underperforming a lot, and we were saying that things needed to shift over towards ETH, and maybe there'd be a consolidation in Bitcoin, or maybe even a correction in Bitcoin. But this is the same. It's like it's not really done much, but it feels like the market will wake up to it at some point, and it will break out. Now we've had this 92 cents resistance point on from a very long time. It did get over it here, but it actually stopped it on this particular rally that it's just had now. So it's in a fairly neutral place, but in the context of, I think, a very positive market. So I'd like to see how far it gets back down on this correction. Um, I'd hope it doesn't come all the way to the trend line. If it does, it's fine. But if it starts to rally before it does that, like if the pullback just comes in maybe into this average or somewhere a bit higher, that would be a good sign. Get another go at this 92 cents level, and we can start talking about 132 and then move into this high all the way up here. So if again, it's like a question of what is your timing, because with Solana long term, I think I would be sitting on it and just holding it. But given that we are looking at this week to week, trying to time it a bit better is obviously part and parcel of what we like to do with the market. So again, with this, it's just buy, and for me, it's a buy and just sit on it until we get some form of technical breakout, maybe add to it if it starts to run. And if it breaks an important support like 50 cents, you can see how well that's held there. And if it also, it's a psychological level at 50 cents, but it's a proven support level and resistance, so it's very, very key. It closed below there, and I'd have to say I'm wrong, but that's part of technicals. You need a parachute level out when the market moves against you. So overall, it should move, I think, with everything else when this short-term consolidation is over.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that Cardano has a lot more of its gains to realize. Now, this is a chart. This is Cardano, I think, on Binance. So the history is incomplete. It only goes back to about April 2018. So prior to this, it had actually peaked out at $1.40, and it came back down during the bear market. Now, keep in mind, like crypto historically has had a 4-year cycle, where every 4 years it's gone absolutely crazy, and then big pullbacks. And we see this big pullback here, and these pullbacks are amazing for buying, and these are amazing for selling. And Cardano is one of the ones that made me a lot of money during the previous bear market that I loaded up on. And then as it went crazy, my gains were absolutely incredible. Now, at this point, people were calling it dead and Cardaleno, and it would never survive, and people were fighting on it pretty much on a daily basis. And if you said anything positive about Cardano during this time period, especially here, you were pretty much laughed at as stupid. And yet Cardano went all the way to $3, and it went to $3.30, even though the chart doesn't quite show it here. And it had bottomed out at 1.7 cents. So 200x to the upside potential if you happen to buy the bottom and you happen to sell the exact top. Now, what happened after that big bull market? Well, pullback. That's just what happens. It overruns, and then it overcorrects to the downside. And Cardano bottomed out around 24 cents, which I called it here an absolute incredible buy. Even though I usually don't buy projects with a market cap like this, Cardano was at 24 cents, an incredible buy for the bear market. And it ran all the way up to $1.35. And has pulled back to another juicy buy level. Now, am I buying Cardano? No, I do have some still. It's one of the few larger market cap projects I'm even carrying anything at all. And the reason I don't carry it is the market cap's 27 billion. That's just outside of what I'm looking for. But I do think Cardano is a good buy. I think it's only realized part of its gains. For those potentially looking at larger cap projects, because each of us has a different risk tolerance. And larger cap projects often carry less risk than a lot of the stuff I'm in. And so there's a lot of people that don't have my same risk tolerance that are in larger caps. And I don't tell you whether to buy, wait, or sell. This is just what I'm thinking for me. But I like Cardano for a larger cap one, and it has realized some of its gains. Realized it bottomed out at 24 cents or a little bit below. That was an incredible buy. And this is about 3x up from there, which is not a bad buy. So Solana is up 25x from its bottom, and Cardano is up 3x from its bottom. And so I think Solana's realized a lot more of its run this bull market than where Cardano is at. So for me, it does get a buy, even though I'm personally not buying more Cardano because I'm in riskier stuff with my own assets. All right, let's take a look at SUI, which is an interesting one. See where things are at.
Yeah, SUI has been one of those that I tend to really like, because technicals has been very positive. The pullbacks have been, although percentage moves, they're always going to be large, aren't they, because of the nature of the space that we're in. But the technicals are relatively clean in the sense that we've got a high, low, that it's compressing, and the market has been closer to its all-time high compared to some of the other markets. So I think once this consolidation period is over, that this could be a leader in the breakout. And it might not do it this week, and it might not do it next week, but longer term, this has the potential to squeeze into this all-time high and go further. So I like the technicals. I like the fact that the trend line is still positive. It was a leading market that we picked up around here, and this is not a trend-ending signal from what I can see. This is just a consolidation, which is an encouraging sign, because for me it suggests that we're going to see in the next move quite a decent run. But the market has to confirm that. It doesn't matter what I think, it's what the market actually eventually does. So we'll just have to wait and see if it can get through this resistance at 432 to start with. And then if it's playing in this zone, it'll be very, very attractive for a break of this 5.37. Even if it takes a couple of goes, it's still going to be knocking on that door and pushing to the upside. So short term, yeah, I don't think it's going to move now, but I definitely wouldn't turn my back on it and go, I'm not going to look at it for another month. I think we have to keep monitoring these levels. But so short term, I think it'll consolidate. Longer term, I think the breakout potential is bullish. So if I could say short term, it's a wait, but long term, it's a buy.
Yeah. And a lot of my own personal preferences, I play these for the longer terms because it's just easier to be right when I'm playing for the long term. I did try my hand at day trading in 2020, and it introduced so much stress and so much watching things and like really a lot of panic. And I saw that the numbers on day trading are actually quite astoundingly bad for most people that day trade. Very few actually make good money over it over long term. And as I was really thinking about it, I was like, well, I'm trying this day trading thing, but I know over the long term, what I do works really, really well. And that introduces so much less stress. I'm going to focus on that because it is easier to be right in the long term than it is in the short term, especially when crypto has this greater 4-year cycle. So looking at SUI, right? SUI was essentially a lot of the research that went into Facebook's coin that they were trying to make and their blockchain that they were trying to make got handed over and became SUI. So a lot of research, I think billions of dollars that Facebook spent went into making this token in this chain. So a significant amount of research. And, it's performed pretty well. It was a really good buy here and here. Is it still a good buy? Well, we have to look better at the market cap to know. Now, for a chain that I think has significant long-term traction, it's still relatively cheap at 13.14 billion, even though it's up. I just think it was a particularly good deal this right here. And this is its first bull run that it's going through. So I think it still has probably 30, well, it's got anywhere from like 10x to 30x potential. This bull run is my guess. Being at a $13 billion cap right now, 10x potential would take it to $130 billion market cap. And I think it could go much higher than that to like 30x where it's at. Now, had you gotten it much cheaper, then it had bigger upside. But I am seeing enough traction happen on SUI that I do think it sticks around for the long term. Back to its chart and price performance. I had a chance to buy some down at these levels, but it's just outside of what I'm looking at. And so it didn't make sense for what I'm at. I'm in lower cap stuff that I think has bigger upside potential. And so though I like the project, I like it a lot. I told the person I was interfacing with that interfaces with the SUI team that they offered me to be able to buy a bunch at a discounted rate if I would cover it. And I was like, well, I appreciate that, but I'm good. I'm going to be investing in other things, but I'm going to be covering SUI anyway, because I do think the chain is going to make it long term. And so thank you for the offer, but I'm good. And I like SUI. It just doesn't fit my profile, but only because I'm not buying large caps. If I was buying large caps, absolutely, I'd be buying SUI. I think it's one of the ones that makes it long term. It's one of my favorites in the large cap blockchains. It's getting enough traction. I think it'll be with us for forever. So that's what I'm looking at. And the chart looks pretty good too. Like Paul said, I think this is a long-term buy. I think it's going to continue to step up over time to 10x to possibly 30x gains from here in the blow-off top. So I would say it's a buy, even though I'm not buying it. I am in the riskier stuff, like some of the stuff we're going to cover in a minute, like this next one, OMI, which is a much riskier one, but with bigger potential upside. Should I be right on it?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just looking around at some other markets. I'll get OMI on there now. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So, well, here we are again in a consolidation with OMI, and the markets are starting to ease off a little bit. So, what I'd really like to see with this to confirm a base is some form of outperformance against everything else. We've seen some activity, which has been good. It's been fighting against the lows. We've seen some rallies, but we're still getting this pattern of lower highs, here and here. We're not breaking this pattern that really needs to happen. So on the downside, that's happening. On the upside, we did get this what I call bear trap, where the market sold into new low and then it snapped back up again, and it's managed to hold on to that low from here. So if we take it from like the 21st of June to now, it's stopped going downwards, which you might say, well, okay, whoopee do, when's it going to go up? That is the point, of course. In order to form a base, the market has to stabilize. And the last time it stabilized enough, we got this very decent move here. It just didn't stick. So sometimes when that happens, it's because the market is making an even bigger base. So the size of the base is related to how much the market moves up. So a smaller base, smaller rally, larger base, larger rally. Now, there isn't enough evidence for me to step in at this point. It's still got more work to do, but it is still consolidating. So, we'll just have to wait. So it's definitely a wait for me. I think you could probably have guessed that anyway, just by looking at the chart. It's sitting on support here. I don't want to see it in this zone, this area here, because these two support points have been tested and rejected, and i.e. we know that they're buying points. So a slip below there, I think, would technically be not a good sign. So I'd be thinking 2 steps ahead if it goes into that zone. That's why I want this level here to hold into next week. But other than that, yeah, it's still a wait for me. Yeah, so we did, just one point was that there was evidence of some activity around here, which was good. But I think we even talked about it on the show, didn't we? And there was some like positive news, but for some reason prices aren't sticking. So whether that was excitement over nothing or whatever, we just don't know. But price action wise, still a wait.
It is interesting how a little bit of excitement can really drive the price up, because there's fairly low liquidity on this. So when it does boom, it's really going to boom. And that point where it booms is just not here yet. Now, I've been following OMI for a long time. I actually bought in the pre-sale in 2018. And during the bear market, it got absolutely savaged. And people pretty much said OMI was dead. And then it went 3,000x in between literally December to March, December 2020 through March of 2021, 3,000x. And that's what some of these higher risk altcoins can do. And what over booms tends to over bust. And that's what we've seen here. And so once again, people are saying OMI's dead. It's never going to come back alive. And that is music to my ears, which cue this very wise comment that I like from Doflamingo. And he said, I'd argue now is a good time to sell ETH if you bought the fear. So Doflamingo says it right. We buy low and sell high. I like this. I was buying ETH when people were saying it was dead, and they were saying it was dead right here. So, well, a couple times, like here, ETH came all the way down to $800 during the bear market in June of 2022, which was an amazing price. And people were saying ETH was dead. Recently, I remember some major channels covering how they were selling all their ETH for Solana, and they were literally selling it here. And you think, well, this person's, got this huge channel and over 1 million followers, and they must know what they're talking about. Well, they literally sold the bottom on ETH. And so many people do that. And the thing was, oh, ETH's just not getting enough traction. ETH is dead. What's happened since then? Solana has not done much during that same time, and yet ETH has gone tremendously. So realize that if you're buying when things are absolutely low, you're going to be buying contrary to what everyone is saying. And most people can't do that, which is why a lot of people don't do well with investing, which is why I cover things when everyone's saying those projects are dead. That's when I'm generally covering them, because that's when the price is low. And there's no disagreement that the price is low, but most people are disagreeing that the price is ever going to recover. And that's where them and I are strongly disagreeing. That's where I strongly disagreed with so many people on Cardano back in the last field. And Cardano alone, my positions in Cardano, went up over $1 million from what I'd bought at to what it became. And yet people were saying it was dead when I was buying it. And if I, told people I was buying it, they told me I was crazy. Now, I get that a lot with OMI. I've been buying OMI while it's cheap, and it's been getting even cheaper. And a lot of people are like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. How come you keep buying it? Well, that's what I did when I was buying Cardano. I started buying Cardano 11 cents. And then it went to 9 cents, and then it went to 7 cents. And every time it went down, I didn't get mad. Oh, a little bit from the standpoint of, shoot, I could have bought so much more if I had known it dropped this cheap. And I bought more at 5 cents. I bought a whole load more at 3 cents. And at the bottom at 1.7 cents, I missed a buy at the bottom there. And it went to over $3. So amazing, amazing gains. Over half of what I bought at 3 cents. And so that was 100x from the bottom. So as OMI has gotten cheaper, a lot of people freak out like that's a bad thing. I see it as a good thing because I'm able to dollar cost average more and more at the lower prices. Because I think when the bull run happens, that this OMI, which is in the digital collectibles narrative, I think the digital collectibles narrative does quite well as people wake up to what's happening with Web 3.0. And OMI does tremendously. So in the meantime, will it get cheaper? It might. It might. Do I think it's a good buy? I think it's an amazing buy. I think people will look back in the future and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it was ever that cheap. Just like people are looking back now and being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe ETH was ever $800. But if you were buying it here, people were telling you were stupid and crazy and ETH was dead. If you were buying here, people were telling you were stupid and crazy and ETH was dead. And now we've seen ETH is not dead at all. There's plenty of traction there. So why was it recently $1,300 when it's now $3,800? Well, that's just how markets work. Everyone was saying it was dead here, and now everyone's like, oh, no, wait, oh, ETH is alive. So Paul has this saying that I absolutely love. He says, if it's obvious to everyone, then it's obviously wrong. And I recently held in an interview that we're going to air probably later today with a VC, one of the gals leading up Gates venture capital arm. And she's very smart, savvy. She's been in 9 years, almost 10 years now, doing investing, and she's done tremendously well herself. In the last year, was recruited by Gate to help run their venture capital arm. And she gives some really, really good insights into what they look at and what they buy and how they select for good investments. But she also said something I thought was really interesting, and I've heard this a lot. And this has become a saying that seemingly is obvious to everyone. So I would strongly suggest it's obviously wrong, which is there's not going to be an altcoin run this time. There are just too many altcoins out there, and there's not enough money to be spread amongst the altcoins because there's so many there. So there won't be an altcoin run. You know, in part, that's partially accurate. There is a lot of crap out there. What there isn't is a lot of solid altcoin projects that actually have strong fundamentals. And I think those ones do really good. What will happen with the crap? I have no idea. Those aren't the ones I'm investing in anyway. And she does give amazing insights into the altcoins they invest in. So I hope you watch that interview. It'll be awesome. And from a different perspective, but we essentially look for the same things when investing in good projects. Now, she doesn't do the kind of investing I do. She invests usually in equity in companies or large tokens, usually from the project themselves, and usually at the earlier stages of their development. So pre-seed or pre-sale round 1 or pre-sale round 2, and sometimes buying equity in the companies. But she's looking for the same things in the teams, and I think you'll appreciate and possibly learn some things from her. Well, super chat from Mike Jones. We will definitely include that. In fact, next up, we'll look at DEVVE, and then we'll look at Devvstream together. There are some ties. So if you haven't guessed already, OMI does get a buy from me. So where is this? And I have been personally buying it. I guess that's not OMI. Here's OMI here. It does get a buy from me, especially at these prices. I think it's an incredibly undervalued altcoin, and I love it. Let's take a look now at DEVVE, and then we'll look at Devvstream, which is a stock ticker.
Yeah. So, I think just in summary of what you were saying there, it's important that everyone has their own perspective. They have their own risk tolerance. They have their own time horizons and will approach the markets in different ways. So what works for you might not work for someone else, for their mindset, et cetera, et cetera. And it's what makes the market really. So I think that's a really important point, that people need to find things that fit their personality. For some people, they want to be in and out and they don't want any positions overnight. Other people are quite happy to take a few positions and look at them occasionally and let them run for the long term. It's all different. None of it's wrong. It's just different. And as I say, part of it is finding something that works for you. So, for me, it's obviously all technical. I have ideas about the markets, but in the end, the chart's got to prove, or it's got to show what my idea might be. Or, I was just looking at, say, soy futures just now, and it looks like they're going to go up. And what does that mean? I don't know anything about soy futures. It's just what the chart's telling me. So I've just learned to trust that. For some people, they need the fundamentals, and that's not wrong. It's just the way they approach it. But with DEVVE, this has been, we've been looking at this for a while. I think when we started off, it was in this downward trend. And then, so for me, there was little to say buy at any stage along there. And then we got this waking up of the price action here. So this impulsive move that started this trend up, we got this consolidation. The reason why I'm going back to that is because this can play out further along in the future. So this breakout here at 49 cents and this really decent rally. Now, I know the market got very excited. There were all sorts of announcements and stuff supposedly coming out around here, and the technical patterns were very bullish, but then we got this short-term double top pattern, and the market has sunk back to that support and even broke down through it. But I think the last time we looked at it a few weeks back, it had made what I thought was an inverse head and shoulders. And I was saying that it should come back to 45, may come a little further, but then it should come back up again and break this line as a buy trigger or as a resistance point, 1, 2, and then the third one it breaks. Now, on the positive side, it has done that. It has turned around. It has formed the base, which is a good sign. On the sort of on the negative side, it's not closed. Well, it has closed above it, but it's also come below that line again. In volatile markets, that's acceptable. In markets like this, that is acceptable. This is the sort of thing you'd expect to see in markets that are relatively thinly traded. We still have to accept that compared to other markets, that big positions from certain few players can really push this market around. But overall, it's in a much better position having formed this base. And although I think, again, in the short term, it might just consolidate, and that's more because of what's going on elsewhere than this on its own. I think the bigger picture, it's shown some basing price action that should push it higher. So if I can split the short term and the long term, I'd say the short term, it's probably going to come back again, maybe have another retest of this 49 cents. But then because we've got these higher lows, we've got this major low, then we got this low, both higher. If it comes and trades around 49 cents, I think there could be some buying coming in there. And, the overall trend should be upwards from there. So short-term correction, longer term, the bullish scenario seems to dominate. So short-term consolidation, longer-term buy.
Awesome. Well, I'm a big believer in DEVVE myself. Why don't we'll take a look at DEVVE on my charts, then we'll look at Devvstream, which is related.
Okay.
So first, let's take a look at DEVVE's price. And here's when it launched. Now, DEVVE is one I've been following long before the token was around, and I invested in them back in 2021. And I invested a significant amount in them. They had a blockchain that could do 8 million transactions per second. The cost per transaction was infinitesimally small. The speeds were crazy, good, and scalable. And some really good things about them, though nobody knew about them. And it was hard to get any traction or attention because they didn't have a token that anyone could trade. So if somebody couldn't invest in them, it was hard for them to want to keep track of it. Well, they finally launched their token in January or February 2024, and it skyrocketed up to over a couple bucks. It just shows $1.88 here. It went over $2. And then it corrected downwards to an amazing price. And I was covering it here when it was really, really cheap. Then it skyrocketed up to near a couple bucks, and then has simmered back down. But I think it's forming this big, beautiful W pattern. And I think it's going to be on the upswing from here. And where does it go in the bull run? I think so much higher than what it's been. It's one of my largest holdings in crypto. So just realize I'm very biased towards this. I'm biased because I own it a lot. I own it a lot because I believe in the potential here. So realize I'm heavily biased, and my bags are packed on this one massively because I believe in their future. And I'm just sharing with you the things that I do and why I am making the decision I'm making. So fastest blockchain that I'm aware of, I like the team a lot. There's a big partnership they've been teasing for a while, and that's part of what drove this price up here is the anticipation of that partnership. The announcement of that partnership has been delayed, which the price has then settled and simmered. And this pullback is great for those who like to buy low so that they can sell high. It's creating an amazing opportunity to be able to buy low again. And it looks like, see this smoothing and rounding, it's probably getting ready to run. I definitely think it's a buy. Now with that, part of what they did was they got part of their company. I forget how they did this, but they did Devvstream, and so they took an existing company that was out there that was on the NASDAQ already and acquired it. And so that's what gives them a ticker symbol. I think that's how this came about, that they were on it. And I don't know what to think of this price action. I don't know what led up to this. Were they part of DEVVE here and then they did this big fall off, or what is this all about? I've really been following it myself since about here at the 55-cent range, and it came down, it absolutely blasted off in May, and I don't know what that's about. We had this big run up here related to an announcement where they were raising some capital and they're going to hold on their books, I think, some Bitcoin, ETH and Solana, if I'm remembering right, and some DEVVE tokens. So they're doing like a $500 million raise, and they've raised 10 million of that or so. And they're using that to have their own treasury of Bitcoin, Solana, ETH, and DEVVE, if I'm remembering right. And that caused their token price to jump up tremendously, or their stock price to jump up to $1. And it's since come back down into the range that it was at. That's a little bit of context. Paul, what are you seeing on the charts for this?
For Devvstream,
Yes, Devvstream.
yeah. So we have looked at it before, haven't we? So because I've got this line across here. Don't know why I didn't remember it, but it must have been a while back. So first of all, I'd say what was going on here. Obviously nothing at all, and then we got this collapse. So don't know. That's not great, of course, and I'd like to know what's behind it. But this price action here is showing signs of a base. So it looks like it's making some form of major inverse head and shoulders pattern. And this line here is what I'm showing where it needs to hold in. You don't get perfect symmetry, but you have got something that looks relatively symmetrical. And that's what we're looking for here. So it's made this sort of left shoulder. This is all part of the head, and this is part of the right shoulder. Now, that might sound like strange terminology if you've not heard it before, but all it's trying to say is that from the market collapsing, it's now in a basing phase, and that basing phase, the market is trying to move higher. So if we take this low point, this is the low shelf point 1, this is the next place where it's finding support, which is higher, so we can justify an upward trend. Now, where is the next important technical point? Well, is obviously what this 148 area, because that's where it's failed to get through before. So if it does get through there, it shows us that the dynamics of the market has changed, and all of this will be a base, and we should be able to get into this sort of zone. Of course, that's all contingent on this, so we need to wait for it to break this 148 to confirm it. But along the way, as it gets closer to it, as it kind of forms this pattern, we could like, look, you can buy and sell at any point. So we could buy at this point and put a stop below here, below sort of 30 cents, maybe just a bit more to give it some room. And if we get stopped out, then fine. And for me, I wouldn't mind buying it and then buying it again higher up. The problem with buying it too early is that it can just stay and do nothing, and your capital gets deployed somewhere where you might then see an opportunity elsewhere, and you're faced with, do I get out of this, which is doing nothing, or do I wait, or do I move it into this other thing that's moving? And you might miss an opportunity elsewhere because your capital's tied up. Um, so there is an opportunity cost with holding something that's not moving, but also the other side of it, potentially when it wakes up, when it starts moving fast, you're in a very good level. So, obviously that's all down to strategy. But what I look at is, can I justify a buy position? I could justify an early buy position on the basis of the support that it's made here. I couldn't justify a longer term position until it breaks this area here and it's free of this zone. So for me, in the short term, I think it would depend on your risk tolerances and whether you wanted to tie some capital up or look at a better opportunity. I think I could probably find a better looking chart that I might want to invest in, but that doesn't mean that I, absolutely wouldn't invest here. So I think that all shakes out into, it's a wait, but it's a very interesting looking chart. And I definitely would be watching it on at least a few days basis, rolling basis. I wouldn't want to wait a week or so, because when things wake up, they can move very quickly.
Yeah, thank you for the super chat on this. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm curious to see what this ends up doing. I don't spend a lot of time following stocks, and I really haven't since I found crypto. But like Paul said, price action is price action. And when you get good at reading charts, you don't have to know the fundamentals. You can look at what's happening in the price action, and that will usually give some indications, especially at certain points, what the odds are that things will play out a certain way. So sometimes you can see the early breakouts before they happen because the price action will reflect that. I'd say this overall looks bullish to me, just based on the charts. I like it. Now, am I holding it? No, I'm just in crypto and I'm good with that. I do think this pattern that it's showing right here, number one, it hit some support there. It bounced the upside. It came back like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and I see this pattern play out. I think probably it's going to take another step up. That's why I say it's a buy. Now, in the long term, I think DEVVE does do really well in the bull run. That will probably impact Devvstream as well. And if they're putting crypto on their books, that'll really impact their upside when crypto goes crazy, if I'm right on that. And that's what the odds are. That's what I'm playing. All right, let's get back to, we have a few other ones that we're going to look at. Let's start with Umbrella from Fowler back here. And Umbrella is an interesting one. Let's take a look at what's going on with Umbrella.
Yeah, Umbrella, that was a one that sort of, when we were first doing the show, I remember us discussing a long time ago. And it's always had quite an interesting technical signature where the setups have been, it's difficult to explain really, but some markets trade with an interesting signature, and this is one of them. Some are kind of, they don't make such good patterns. It's just how it is really. But what I like about this is, okay, what I don't like about it is that it's in a big downward trend. Obviously, that's not great. What I do like about it is that it's formed a base, a double bottom, which can justify a buy position. Now, this is just a short-term buy because there's a lot of overhead resistance. Where is that? Well, you can see exactly where it is. It's right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times it's hit this 1/6 of a cent level. So, of course, that's going to be key. So we're going to be running into that brick wall, even if it does go up. So beyond this point, it really is contingent on it breaking this level. But two support points and a break through the resistance suggests it wants to have a go. Now, is this 100% guaranteed? None of it is, of course. It's just a probability thing. Of course, it can come back. Of course, it could break this low as well. It's just that for me, there's more justification technically to try and buy it on a level like this than there is to try and pick the low as it's breaking through a key level like this and heading downwards. So with technicals, you don't buy the low, you wait for the low to form, for the market to stabilize, and then try and jump in. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So part of trading is risk management and position management, which is a very key and often overlooked part of it. But of course, with that, bringing the edge together, you're looking at what the technicals are telling you and whether it's a good time to buy. And so it would be nicer if it was over this point here, because that's where the base was formed. So it's played around there. So it's what I call chewing that level a bit. But overall, it's still moving up from here. And I think what's nice about this, it's showing, it's really nice that people are finding some of these coins that we haven't looked at in a long time, but they're also not just on the floor. They're showing a little bit of signs of life. So when Rain mentioned that, will we have an altcoin season? I really do think we will. I think what I was heartened by the fact that ETH actually started to move very much on the spreads against Bitcoin, as an indication that altcoins were coming back into focus. Now, if we're being very much risk on, then I don't see why a lot of coins should go higher. That doesn't mean everything goes higher, but that means that the tide will be rising a lot of boats. Some will have holes in, some won't. But either way, I think there's a very interesting period coming, and this could be the start of those basing patterns. So that's why I think this is really interesting to look at. So for me, it would be a short-term guarded buy because it's making a base, and there isn't much to go beyond this point here. So I'd have to take it one step at a time, but it's really good to come back and look at this after, quite a long time of it being out of favor. So thanks for that pick.
Yeah, we like buying low so that we can sell high, and Umbrella is really low. Now, a little bit of history. We did cover a lot in here when it got cheap in the middle of this double peak market that we had during the bull market. And the reason is some people that I knew put me in touch with the team, and they were going to be doing a big marketing push. And they discussed with me the marketing push they were going to do. And I thought, you know what, it's going to bring their price back up. I did like their value proposition. Essentially, they're a competitor to Chainlink. They're a decentralized oracle that has better speeds than Chainlink and offers some things Chainlink doesn't. And they were having a hard time getting traction versus Chainlink because it's such a behemoth. But I thought they had a good value proposition. I covered them and shared with my audience what the team had shared with me. And sure enough, they went from about 10 cents up to 80 cents. So there was a nice little pump there and some nice gains. And I sold as things went crazy there and took some nice profits. I think that they're at a good buy point. Again, I was just checking and seeing, one of the important things is I want to know how active the team is. Like, have they survived the bear market? Are they alive? What's going on with them? And the best way to see that is through interviews with the team. But another way is just kind of seeing what type of activity they have on Twitter. And there's some engagement on Twitter. So we see 17 hours ago, they posted speed is king. Fast oracles ensure DeFi traders can capitalize on market movements instantly. Slow articles create windows for malicious actors to exploit price differences. That's true. Even a few milliseconds delay can mean catastrophe. Also true. And so that's the value proposition essentially of their oracle. So centralized oracle equals single point of failure, choose decentralization. So July 21st, they made a post here, but then it goes way back to May 12th and May 2nd. So they're only somewhat active on Twitter, which is normal. A lot of your smaller coins that are really early stage projects, they've had to scale back during the bear market to stay alive. And that's, if they're smart, they've scaled back so that they're going into low flow mode so that they can survive until the bull market happens again. So I'm seeing a lot of good signs here. I like where the price action is at. It's not at the cheapest that it's recently been, but it's pretty cheap. It's about 2x up from this bottom. Market cap is at under $1 million. I like to see that a lot. Yeah, so before I actually would buy, I would be watching some interviews with the team to see how things are going. But I like this. I rate this overall a buy. This is the type of thing I'm looking for. And so they pumped tremendously during the bull run. They pulled back tremendously during the bear market. And those are the opportunities I look for. I like companies that are 2 to 6 years old. You have a track record after they raise money. Have they stuck around? Are they still like thriving, or did they take their raise is like their exit plan and go buy some Ferraris and Lamborghinis for themselves in their nice vacation home with the millions of dollars that they raised? Or have they actually been using it to build a service that's going to stick around? So early stage is quite risky because a lot of times what I just mentioned happens. They stick around during the bear market and they've been wise with their money. They should survive it and building into that. So OMI was once at this point that they were just trying to survive the bear market. And when they did, their token went 3,000x in that coming bull market. All right. So LUKSO is the next one. Yeah. And I believe you found it.
Yeah. So this is needs to do a bit more work to complete its base. As you can see, the trend is still very negative here, but it is showing some signs of fighting back, and there is a bit of evidence of a base, but it's actually got to really get through this level here before we can confirm it. So it's gone down, hit resistance, come down, and it's the pace of this move is less aggressive. So when the market hits a level it likes, it usually goes up fast. And this has gone up quickly initially, and now it's just slowing off a little bit. And it's forming more of this downward trend again. So that's why the problem here, it's a bit more equivocal as to whether we've got a basing pattern as yet. What would push it beyond that would be if it could take that resistance out, because it would do two things. It would break this pattern of falling highs, and it would also complete a basing pattern, getting through this resistance, and also give it a bit more of a margin from this low. At this point here, it's quite easy for it to drop back here and then edge into the danger zone very quickly. But above here, it's got a bit more margin, which is a good thing. Now, again, these percentages are very big because of the value that it's trading at. So, of course, percentage terms, it's a big move, but we've got to look at it on the basis of what the chart is saying. So for me, this is a wait. Above this, I wouldn't be saying it's a wait. I'd be saying it would look more exciting for a move higher. The next level where if it does break higher, that it should find some potential resistance is at 120. That's a huge level there. See the way it touched that and just shot off like putting your hand on a hot plate. And then when it went through that, there was an attempt to buy, but it really just sunk below. So it's played around this 120. That really is very key. So I would be waiting to see if it can get through here. If it does, then the momentum could push it to 120. Beyond that, I'd have to reassess it just to see the speed of it, what the macro scene is looking like as well, whether there's anything else that's coming into play. But there's no reason why this shouldn't be a base. It's just we'd need a bit more evidence. So for me, it's a wait at this point.
Yeah, I was just checking out some further details on it. Look, I like what's happening with the price action. I like to buy cheap, and the price been getting cheaper and cheaper. Now, is it devastatingly cheap? No, Umbrella Network was devastatingly cheap, and sometimes I quite like devastatingly cheap. It's still at a $24 million market cap, and it came out during the bear market. The token launch did. And we see that it peaked out at almost $12, and it's now down 90-something% from there. And so it's cheap. Is it cheap enough? Well, it might be going down further. So I was taking a peek into the fundamentals behind it. And what is LUKSO? Well, it says here, a blockchain built for social, culture, and creators. Any questions? Ask ChatGPT about it. Okay. A new kind of builder is emerging, the cultural engineer. With LUKSO, creators and developers have the tools to build an internet rooted in identity and ownership. Berlin Blockchain Week was just a glimpse. This is cultural infrastructure in motion. So really, I would want further research on this in that who is the team behind it? What makes this special? Like, it's an ETH layer 2, essentially scaling solution. Why is this going to get traction versus all the other ETH layer 2s? It would be the question that I'd have in my mind as I watch some interviews with the team to feel out what I think about the founders. Now, you'll see when you watch that video with Laura from gate.com, you'll see that the team is the primary thing she looks at, like who are the founders, and she's correct there. As you're learning to become an experienced investor, the team is everything, especially if you're trying to buy something that's undervalued. You have to get a feel for who is the team behind it and what is their vision. Part of the reason I launched this channel, big part, was so that I could get interviews with teams on the projects that I was interested in, because the team is everything. So I would say look deeper at the team to know if this is truly undervalued or not. I don't know anything about the team, and so I can't make that. I like what's happening on the price action, though I suspect it is going to get even cheaper from here before it does go up. So for me, it's just a wait, but I'm seeing interesting things. To know whether or not I'm really interested, I'd have to know more about the team. All right, we had Bump. Mikey wants us to take a look at Bump. He's just, yeah. So let's take a look at Bumper. Mikey's considering throwing some coffee money at it.
Yeah.
Let's see what the price is doing.
Well, the price is, from what I can see, is just collapsed down here. So even here, I wouldn't have said it was a good idea because there's no sign of a base. But if that is correct, I don't know if that's, yeah, I think it is correct as to where it is. Yeah, sorry, for me, that's not a buy. I would be definitely waiting until it's stabilized. Coffee money, maybe. Potentially, if it's, but it's like a casino going red and black at this point. Yeah, it might bounce. Where would you hold it? Would you put more into it? Can you get drawn into something that's going to keep going down? Just got to be careful of those things. I'd rather buy something that was breaking into a new high, which has a greater probability of going up. But yeah, rolling the dice on it on the very small amount of money. Yeah, okay, fair enough. If it doesn't change anything, but the danger with that is you can just keep doing it as it goes lower and lower, and that's where it starts to become not a great strategy. So I would just watch out for that. But yeah, that's not looking, obviously it's not looking great. It needs to do a lot more technically before a base is in.
Yeah, I don't know what's caused this big massive price decrease, and bringing its market cap to about a $50,000 market cap. So if Bumper survives, and I use the word if because you don't know, a lot of times when you're early stage business investing, realize that they raise some capital to get started, and often the bear market lasts longer than they want to. If they're not judicious with that capital, spending it wisely, they can run out, and then they run into a cash flow problem where they then have to close down operations if they can't raise additional funds. But it's hard to raise additional funds when their token price is so low. So they actually have a service that's out there, but the service isn't getting much traction, as DeFi in general isn't yet getting much traction. So will it survive? That is the question. If I knew that, then this would be an amazing place to deploy lots and lots of capital. As it stands, it looks shaky as to whether they'll survive. Coffee money is fun because, I mean, at these prices, if you throw $25 in, say there's a 50% chance it survives and a 50% chance it dies, and you throw coffee money in it, like $25. If it survives and thrives, you might get 300x or 1000x on that money. And if it doesn't, well, you lost $25. So it's an amazing coffee money buy. It is extremely risky, larger money buy. Even though I have, what's funny is the market cap is now lower than what I put into this project myself. So my holdings on Bumper are devastatingly down, and that's part of it. There was a point where my Axie Infinity investment looked like it was probably going to go to zero, and then it was probably dead. And yet it did survive and went 3000x from where I had bought at. So will Bumper survive? I don't know. Is it a risky buy? Very, very risky. Coffee money, that's the only thing I would say. It's like it. I like it as a coffee money buy. Would I put? See, I put $50,000 into it about a year ago. It was around 4 cents or something back when I put $50,000 into it, or maybe like 3 cents or something. It's now like 1/100th of that. And so like, yeah, you put in what, $50? Is that the equivalent of what I put in? $50? No, $500 would be the equivalent. Get you the same amount probably as the 50,000 I put in. So will it survive? We'll see. We'll find out. But that is the risk with crypto in general. Sometimes it doesn't. Even sometimes some large caps don't survive. We're in a risky space, but when it does do good, the payoffs can be tremendous. So I do like it as a coffee money buy. Good suggestion.
Is there anyone that you could reach out to talk to them? I just had a quick look at their Twitter, and it doesn't look like it's been updated for a long time.
Yeah, I have reached out to them, and they haven't replied. They have done some updates, like some videos in the last like 2 months. But I imagine they're very much on low flow mode where they're barely surviving. I use the kind of what happens with some crocodiles and alligators when they live in areas that do freeze over, the rivers do freeze over, and they put their little snout up above the water line, and you can see the snout and you're like, man, I think this gator is absolutely dead. It's been frozen in the water for 2 or 3 or 4 months. And then when the river thaws out and stuff, it does come back to life. It enters like low flow mode and survives, which its whole goal is just survive. It does not need to eat, doesn't need to thrive during that, just needs to survive the winter. And that's where Bumper is. So whether they come back to life as the action starts happening, it's hard to say. Kind of like the gator frozen there. It looks like it's completely dead. And it's not necessarily dead, but maybe. You just can't tell. So yeah, they haven't even responded to my, just ask for updates. They responded one a couple months ago. They said, everything's good, mate. And, but then I, asked some additional questions and no response on that. So definitely low flow mode. We'll see. All right, everyone. I think that's what we got. Paul, thank you for joining us. Oh, shoot. Tommy Vesper asked for NTX and Strike on Cardano. We'll take a look at that, and then we'll be done for the week.
NTX. Okay, so NTX, that was a good base. Actually, the base the sort of basing pattern that I was mentioning on the previous chart, this is kind of what I'm looking for, where it's made this W. It's okay to see a consolidation, but it's obviously got to get through that. But the size of this pattern gives us a target for its potential move, and it's actually hit that move and then come off. So the question is now, is it going to form a bigger base, or is this going to continue in its downward trend? It's not particularly clear, but I do think it is a good sign that it has made a base at all, because at this stage it was in a very dangerous position when it broke this low. And I think, again, we mentioned around that time that there was quite a few altcoins that were doing this, i.e., making a bear trap, people selling into the lows, and then it actually just snapping back and going higher. So the fact that it's done that is a good sign. We've got some support levels to play against. So if someone was buying it from a technical point of view, you'd be looking at your risk reward. This would be a good support level at 1.2 cents. And then, of course, you've got at 1 cent, and then obviously this level here. So depends how far you want to allow the market to go against you before you stop out. For me, I think there needs to be a bit more evidence that the market's base, but I could be persuaded by another move higher, i.e., if it takes this high out, you've got 2 points there that have acted as resistance. If it gets through there, it would start to look very interesting. But the big level for this one, for the long term, which actually, I put it into context, I do think it will have a go at these levels, just perhaps a little further down in the road, after these consolidations are over, is around here. Because look, this is massive support, massive resistance at 2.2 cents. So that's really where we want to get. We want to play in this zone here. We want it up here. And then if it just pops through, that will be a massive base, and we can start talking about some much higher levels. So a few steps ahead, it's got a bit of work to do, but there's definitely some interesting points with which to either take a position now and then like a smaller position with a tight stop. If it fails, okay, don't add to it. If it starts to move up, can think about adding to that position. But the main breakout point comes here, and that might be when everything else is also looking very interesting as well. But I am encouraged by the fact that quite a few altcoins are showing some form of basing pattern. So I'd say at this point in time, I'd have to class it as a wait, but a very interesting wait. It's not a wait like, okay, there's nothing going on, I don't want to see it for another sort of month. I'd be interested in looking at this again in a week, or maybe even before, to see if it can start to get into this area, which is where it will become much more interesting.
So I like the narrative that this is in, and this is one that I made some good money on. I don't presently hold any. Let me just share where things are at now. So this is Coin Market Cap. And in 2021, late 2021, it peaked out at 14 cents. I think that's when Coin Market Cap started trading it. And I sold going into this. So I haven't held any of this in a long time, but I missed buying it here. And it's right back to those prices almost. So it bottomed out at just under 10 cents. It's right, or just under a penny. And it's right back to about a penny. So right now it's trading at 1.5 cents, 1.45 cents. I think it's a good buy. See, like that's where the floor on this one often hits. And this is what buying low looks like. It's at a $7.32 million market cap. I like the narrative that it's in. And Cardano's ecosystem has enough support for this to do well in a bull market. And we're going to see that with the next project, Strike. By the way, there's multiple strikes. You're looking for the one with a green emblem, Paul. It's like a green dollar sign. Okay. Is the one particularly we're looking for. So NewNet, we see it's only got 24,000 followers. But I'm seeing good things. You see that unlocking global computing power across devices and building decentralized orchestration platform for the future of digital infrastructure. So it's in the decentralized physical infrastructure narrative. which is a narrative that I think will do really well. It's just a narrative that's not hitting right now. So the big player in that is, what is the name of it? It's top 10. Well, it was a top 10 coin. I don't know where. Let's see where it's at now. What's the name of it? Not Stellar, not Chainlink. Getting what the big player of that is. A render. And it's top 50 now. But you see it's come out of the narrative. So it was at $12 and it's come way back here. And it's a strong narrative. It's just out of their narrative now. So it's down 75%. A smaller player in that same narrative is NewNet. And NewNet's the type of deal I like to buy. And I like it at this price. It's not as cheap as it was at 1 penny. And maybe it comes back down there. But it's at a pretty darn good deal right now. It was an amazing deal at 1 penny. And I think this comes alive during the bull market. So I would rate this a buy. Now let's take a look at Strike, which has had some massive action.
Yeah, so this is big trending market, isn't it? It's still going up. I don't know anything about the background on this, and I couldn't find it on TradingView. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, but I don't know, some reason there's a different one or there's more than one, and the ones I picked, it wasn't the same one. So so this is the chart that we've got, and yeah, very nice upward trend. There's not a whole lot of data. There's it's fairly okay, you know, from November, but still, in the long-term scheme of things, it's very, very young. So, you know, added caution with all of that. This big green candle here has been matched by a red one, which normally indicates a consolidation. So it's more like a sideways move. This break into a new high would have been a buying signal. So people who've been potentially trying to go with the trend, and I would, you know, include myself with that because I do try to do that, will actually be in a position where, you know, they may have to stop out in the short term, or you know, they're kind of holding a position where it's just going sideways. Now, as long as this doesn't form a top, and obviously that's still got to be seen as to how the price action develops from here, it's in an okay position. I mean, it's more bullish than quite a lot of the markets that we've seen. It just looks like it's taking a bit of a breather. Now, the downside of things that run too fast is they could just be driven by some you know, short-term news that everyone's just jumping on board, and then we just see a really big correction. So we've just got to be very careful about things like that happening, especially in this space. But for me, as long as it holds over this 125 level, which is where it struggled initially to break out and then did break out, it's come back and used that as support, but now it's on a higher level. As long as it holds over 125, you know, I think it's okay to view this as a longer term kind of buy position, but it wouldn't surprise me if it goes sideways from here. It'd be nice if it can stay above 150 while it does that, and in this range, then it would cool off a little bit. You know, I like to see consolidations because then it builds up for the next bigger move. So yeah, in the short term, I think it's going to consolidate. In the long term, when it's in an upward trend, I'm kind of forced to say it's a buy. In the same way, if you flip this chart down and it was negative, I'd be forced to say it's a sell because that's the trend. So for me, it is a buy. It's an upward trend. It's just consolidating short term, and I'd just be watching out for 125. If it closes below there, that might indicate that it's formed a top.
Yeah, this is a fun one to watch. This is what happens when something catches some traction. And
It's not a meme coin, is it?
no,
No,
they're
okay,
Strike Finance introduces options, forwards, and perpetual futures trading directly on the Cardano blockchain. So it introduced something that's getting a lot of traction right now on the Cardano blockchain. It's what I would say is a new shiny object. So keeping in mind, we're not in the greater altcoin bull run. I get nervous. Like I don't chase into green candles. So it was trading at 14 cents. It's trading at 10x from that. This is actually a sell signal for me that I'm going to take profits because most of the altcoins are down. If I were holding Strike, and I'm not, if I were holding it, I would absolutely be harvesting from this, and I'd be buying some of the things that are really, really cheap. Might it continue? It might, but it might also pull back because this is running contrary to the trend and those pressures, because we will get to a point where almost everything is doing this. And in that kind of trend, I can take this kind of chance that it's going up and that it will continue to go up. I feel like because most of the crypto market, the altcoins aren't running now, it puts downward pressure that tends to turn trends like this around. Whereas if it were in the general bull market, you would see trends run like this 10x, and then they might do another 5x or 10x on top of that still. But for me, this is a sell. And that's just how I trade these kind of things. Only when it's running contrary to everything else, because I could sell Strike, which is had its own narrative within the Cardano ecosystem right now. Could sell it at 10x up, and then I can come over here to NewNet, which is massively down. And if I can roll 10x gains into this, and this does a 10x or 50x from here, that's 100x or overall 500x on that money. And that's how I play these kind of things. Now, might Strike continue up from here? It may. I don't know what it's going to do, but that's the kind of play I frequently make. We do get some interesting fundamentals here from Tommy. Their mainnet on NewNet goes live Q1 2026. NTX successfully demonstrated their tech recently. Good update. Strike pays holders that stake in Cardano, and stakers earn on all trading fees. It's a revenue sharing project. I love revenue sharing projects. Almost 80% stake. Thank you very much for your assessments. Interesting. Given that maybe it will continue to run more, I still would be doing the same thing. That it's not at a very high market cap. Its market cap was so devastatingly low that even with this big 10x run, it's really only at a $27 million market. But because their fundamentals are so strong, that's caused them to pump as things that come live. People are realizing that they're making some gains as people are trading up. That's got a lot of activity. A 10x in this type of market is a big amount of gains. And personally, I would be harvesting like 50% of my position and taking those gains. I'd be rolling into something that's way down, and I would let some of it continue to ride, but I'd be harvesting at least 50%. Because it's going so contrary to the narrative, I never buy when something's gone 10x when everything else is down, hoping that it's going to go further. That's when I'm harvesting. And if I'm not in it, I missed it. And I missed this one. So Strike's done some amazing things. Now is the time that I'm very reluctant and worried to get in. Even though, where can this go in a greater bull market if they continue to do well? Way, way, way higher than here. But are we there yet with the altcoin blow-offs? Not yet. Not yet. Tommy added there, bringing Bitcoin, Solana, and ETH perpetuals on board next. Sounds like they're doing some good things. They deliver well on there. Their market cap can go another 10x from here, maybe 100x from here, maybe more. So it probably has a good future. I just harvest gains when I see this kind of things because it's running contrary to the trend, and the trend will impact it. Like within the space, remember when blockchain gaming went 10x in October 2023, what did it do after that? It cooled off, and it's been cooling off. Now I think blockchain gaming is an amazing buy. It's been out of the narrative now for a year and a half. It's an incredible buy. Strike has just gone 10x. So that's just my indicators gone 10x. Everything else is way down. It's not a time I buy, even though they have lots of other things coming up. A lot of that's priced in. A lot of that's created the 10x that we've seen, and probably it will settle from here. Cool. Well, it's been a fun show.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, interesting stuff, guys. Thanks for the picks. And there'll be more next week. So looking forward to that.
Paul, thanks for your insights. We appreciate it. And all your experience. I don't know if the audience, sometimes they don't realize, like 30 years experience in price analysis is incredible. Most people don't last very long in this game because it's very, very hard.
Yeah, I've got the gray hairs to prove it, haven't I?
So thank you, Paul, for joining us and helping our
pleasure.
family become more educated in different ways beyond just how I look at things, how somebody who has 30 years experience in trading charts looks at things. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Well, it's an exciting time to be alive if you're looking to create an amazing financial future, and crypto gives us that. Now, even though Bitcoin's realized a bunch of its gains, some of these altcoins, if there's still an altcoin season ahead of us, and I strongly contend that there is, can have some really exciting gains. In the coming 6 months, you might see some things 10x, some things 50x, some things 100x, and some things go up way more than that. And that's exciting to me because I had a similar thesis in the bear market of 2018 through 2020, and I was correct, which created, well, the kind of finances I had been hoping to make my entire life in that year, because of 3 years of dollar cost averaging, all that payoff happened in 2021. And I was able to let go of my job. And if I was just careful with my money, possibly never have to work again. Now, I did redeploy all that capital in this last bear market. So I'm there invested too. I'm sharing with you what I see, what I like, what I don't like, why I like it or why I don't like it. And just sharing with you some of my guesses at how this will play out. I do think the odds, if you're doing research and finding strong teams with a strong narrative that look like they're surviving this bear market, that the odds are stacked in your favor. And if you're right on those, the upside gains far outweigh potential loss. Now, some of the things you invest in, like Bumper, could end up being a loss. That is why I diversify across multiple projects, because you don't know if these projects are going to survive for sure. So some of my favorites right now are Definity. Paul is joining us from Definity, but while he's on, we never talk about Definity's token and the price action there. OMI is another one of my favorites. DEVVE, and I mean, 3 of my favorites. Now, I have lots of favorites, and we did look at a viewer suggestion, NewNet today, and even Umbrella. They're both so cheap. I would strongly suggest taking a deep look at those to see if you like them, to see if there's something you're interested in. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. Thanks for the great suggestions. You guys know what this wrap is all about. Enjoy, and we will see you all soon.
To the space, chasing all of the games, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, right before you could, was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss, cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I'll sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, to leave in a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling your parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be predators. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time to be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.